Hello again, algebra students. We're going to spend another day talking about the same stuff as yesterday, really, when we were talking about x and y intercepts. What I didn't tell you yesterday is that what our equations looked like, for the most part, were called standard form. Standard form is when we have the x and the y together on one side, and they can have a coefficient, so that's what that capital A is and what the capital B is. And then the number that's on the other side of the equal sign, in this case it's a C, is just some constant or regular number. So some of the problems that we looked at yesterday would look something like 2x plus 4y equals 16. So for instance, this equation is in standard form. Again, the x's and the y's are together, the constant, the regular 16, all by itself. They're also going to say A and B are not both zeros. Occasionally, instead of having like a 2 in front of the x, that might be a 0, which would make the x disappear. That would be okay. Or I could make the y disappear if the b was a 0, but I can't make both of them 0. I can't have something like 0 equals 16 because then it's not in standard form and it wouldn't be a linear equation. You have no solution. The other thing that we're adding in today is that sometimes when one of those numbers, either the A or the B, is 0, we do get these different kinds of lines. Still straight lines, this is still all about linear, but when we get only one variable in an equation, we'll either get horizontal or vertical lines. So for instance, in this first example, we have a horizontal line right here, and the equation for this is just y equals some number. And I kind of wrote over it, so it's hard to read. Here's the thing about this. There's only a y. I want you to notice that my line is only crossing the y-axis. Because there's no x, it's not going to touch the x-axis. Now, I use that kind of as like a shortcut way of explaining it. I'm saying I'm not going to try to trick you. I'm not going to make it so that it's on the x-axis, because then it would clearly be touching the x-axis. But if I give you y is equal to a number, it'll be parallel to the x-axis because it's not going to touch the x-axis if there's no x. Similarly, in the second example, when I have just an x equals a number, right here, there's no y in this equation. It's not going to touch the y-axis. It'll be parallel to the y-axis. It'll be a vertical line. We'll have that the y-intercept, or the x-intercept, when the y is 0, is that same number as what we had in our equation. So for these two examples, again, in the first one, this is just an x. It's going to touch the x, it won't touch the y. And it's going to touch the x at -1. So that means right here is where it's going to cross the x-axis. Oh, not a very straight line. I'm very sorry about that. But that's what it looks like when it's just an x. Doesn't touch the y-axis because there wasn't a y. In the second problem, there's only a y. There is not an x. It'll touch the x or the y-axis at 2. And it'll just be parallel to the x-axis. And again, remember, so sometimes we talk about these as horizontal and vertical lines, and I know that some people have a hard time keeping that straight. The first one that we have is vertical. Vertical goes up and down. The second one, right here, this is a horizontal line because it's like the horizon, right? When you watch the sunrise and the sunset and you're looking out and here is the land, here's the edge of the land that you can see. It's the horizon. Okay. This is like yesterday, though. I want to find the x and the y intercepts. And if you'll remember, we start with our table of values. If the y is 0, I'll be putting a 0 right here. It's not 40, it's 4 times 0, which is 0. Adding 0 doesn't do anything. This part, gone. So -2 times what gives me -8? Or you can certainly show this work. -8 divided by -2 is going to be +4. If I wanted to find the y-intercept, when the x is 0. So I'd be putting a 0 right here. And again, negative 2 times 0 is 0. Adding 0 doesn't do anything. I don't need it. So I have 4 times something gives me negative 8. That something has to be negative 2. So 4, 0, and 0, negative 2. And there's my line. Sometimes when we see story problems, they work very nicely to write them in standard form. Having the x and the y together on one side equals another number on the other side. This is a totally realistic kind of a problem. Not really, because you're selling cheese. Apparently you're not a very good cheese seller because you don't remember how much you sold of each kind. But we have this information. We say that you forgot how many pounds of each type of cheese you sold. Swiss cheese is $8 per pound. Cheddar cheese is $6 per pound, and you made $48. You sold $48 worth of cheese. So X is Swiss, Y is cheddar. When I would write this equation, since the X is the Swiss and the Swiss cheese was $8 per pound, I would have 8X. Plus, for cheddar cheese, cheddar is the Y, and that's $6 per pound. And you sold $48. So I want to find the x and y intercepts. Really, this is saying if I sold only Swiss cheese, how many pounds did I sell? If I sold only cheddar cheese, how many pounds would I sell? Realistically, if that happened, even if you weren't a very good cheese salesperson, you should know how many pounds you sold. But if you sold some combination, that would be on that line if we graphed it. So to find the x and the y intercepts, again, this is saying I sold 0 pounds of cheddar cheese. I want to know how many pounds of Swiss cheese I sold. So if I would ignore this part, I'm going to have to rewrite this time. If I just had 8 times something gives me 48, well, that'd be 6 pounds of Swiss cheese would give you that total that you had for $48. Now, what if I said, maybe I didn't sell any Swiss cheese? How much cheddar cheese did I sell? So that would make this part go away. I'd say 6 times, oh, that's going to be 8. So in this problem, what it means, the question for E is, this is saying that you could sell 6 pounds, LB is the abbreviation for pounds, of Swiss, and that would be all of your money. Or you could sell 8 pounds of cheddar. And that would give you all of your money. Or there could be some combination in there. Now, today in the worksheet, you're not going to have story problems like that, but I wanted you to see where that standard form can come in. So worksheet 3.4 is going to be very similar to yesterday's work with the X and Y intercepts, but it's also going to have some horizontal and vertical lines. So again, if there isn't an X, it doesn't touch the X. If there isn't a Y, it doesn't touch the Y. The answer key is in Schoology, and when you're all done, make sure that you take the formative quiz in Schoology. Let me know if you need any help.